Hello and welcome to the ICCE, International Center for Culture and Education. I'm Shubham Thakur, and today we have a very renowned senior lawyer and advocate specializing in criminal law in this country, Miss Rebecca Memon John. Thank you so much for your time. Ma'am, you started your profession in 1988 at the time when most or barely any woman thought of even coming in the criminal law. What motivated you to come and choose this option of becoming a lawyer for criminal and the crime? Because most of the women did not opt for this. So what motivated you?
Two things. I don't think it was a conscious decision on my part. I think it was purely accidental. I'm a criminal lawyer by accident.
Okay.
Because those days we used to be referred to senior lawyers, and the reference that was made, as far as I was concerned, was to a criminal lawyer. And so I found myself in an office which specialized in criminal law. It wasn't something that I chose for myself, but it was chosen for me. But once I became part of that office, the subject grew on me, and I became deeply interested in criminal practice, and that's how I ended up becoming a criminal lawyer.
What had you planned? I mean, which way did you want to go?
In 1988, when I passed out of law college, we were very different people than the young kids of today. We made no plans.
No plans.
We
just jumped in.
We just jumped in. We assumed life would take us to particular places. And all I knew was that I wanted to practice. I had no specific ideas about what I wanted to do. And as I said, I was thrown into a criminal law chamber. And so I became a criminal lawyer not out of choice, but through sheer accident. Once I became part of that chamber, I got deeply interested in the subject and decided to
and
stick
then went on to be a renowned lawyer. Ma'am, ever since coming in this field, in the field of law, specifically in the criminal law and all, what are the changes that you have personally experienced and seen in the Constitution of India and in the criminal law, the cases that are dealt in the courts in this country?
No, the Constitution of India has not changed.
Not the change, it means your experience.
The Constitution of India has remained mercifully constant and has been the guiding force for our practice. I hope the Constitution of India remains what it was always meant to be. I hope it never changes. It is the most important and sacred document as far as the Indian state is concerned, and for Indian citizens. What has changed in criminal law? Well, the number of cases certainly has increased. When I began practicing as a criminal lawyer, they were barely in the Delhi High Court, which was my parent court. There were barely 15 to 20 cases every day on the criminal side roster. Whereas now we have 5 judges sitting on the criminal side, single bench judges, and each of them having a case list of over 100 cases every day. I think that's the biggest change, and I think that affects the quality of justice, because no judge can ever get past that list. He or she can only do a part of the list, and what happens in the end is that many people who are incarcerated in custody continue to wait for a time when their case will be heard by a court. And when a court has 100 matters per day, the level of the time spent on every case obviously diminishes, and that will also affect the quality of justice. So I think the big change that I've noticed over the years is the increasing number of cases that are filed, and the increasingly long list of cases that are before every court.
Ma'am, do you think there should be some fixed limited year per cases, because it goes on for 30 years, 40 years, and then the justice is delayed, and then it is...
Yes, obviously, as a principle, criminal cases, indeed all cases, must finish within a reasonable time frame. That's not happening in India for a variety of reasons. I don't think we have the infrastructure, the capacity to deal with these numbers of cases. We don't have the number of judges to deal with the cases that come for trials. And this is a vicious cycle, because every year the number of cases increases and the number of judges decrease. And in the end, we have a system which is really not delivering justice. We have a system which is exploding at its seams, and ordinary citizens suffer because they don't get any kind of immediate closure. Whether you are complaining of a crime or whether you are accused of a crime, you have the right to a speedy trial. And when it takes years and years and years and years, what happens is the quality of evidence gets compromised. Witnesses begin to forget what they have seen, and therefore when they come to court, their evidence is all jumbled. The accused is not able to produce witnesses who may have testified in his favor because they may have died in the long period of the trial. And in the end, what we get, because what is a trial? A trial is a determination of the truth. But what we get in the end is a mishmash. And even where people are convicted, the evidence is weak. Even when people are acquitted, it is because really the state hasn't been able to put together a strong enough case. So these are the problems that you face. And I personally think that unless something is done on a war footing, the criminal justice system in our country, which has already collapsed, will be a sham very soon.
It will take even more pathetic turn.
It will be a sham, and it will be there for name only, and only high profile cases will get taken up. But the large majority of people who are in our jails are poor people with little or no legal support, and they will certainly not get the sort of justice that they are entitled to get.
Ma'am, with every available data about the pendency and the cases related to all kinds of criminal, civil and all others in the High Court, lower courts and the Supreme Court, with every available data day by day it is even increasing. Earlier it was around 2.93 crore just in the High Court, Supreme Court and the lower courts were touching 3.3 crores. Now it is touching more than 3.5 crore. So it is increasing day by day. Why do you think this problem continues to grow at an alarming rate? I mean,
so
and what is the solution for this?
I don't think there can be a solution, because we've allowed the problem to become such a massive problem. So there are no easy solutions to it. Obviously, the most obvious answer is the lack of judges. We don't have enough judges to deal with the number of cases that we deal with on a daily basis, on a pan-India basis. Secondly, I think there are more. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the courts that for judges to sit in. We don't provide judges with the tools to which will help them to adjudicate a case. For example, the decisions of the Supreme Court which come out must be placed before trial judges so that they can follow that as the law of the land. So there are many problems, and when you move away from the bigger cities and go into smaller areas and smaller towns and smaller districts, the problem is even more acute. So I think we've ignored this for a very, very long time. Also the fact that we sometimes forget that the state, the government, is the biggest litigator in this country. And many of the cases they file should not be filed. And many of the cases they file should never be admitted by courts, but courts routinely admit them. So I think we should also have a system where we look at cases with a lot more care and do not admit frivolous cases, do not admit cases which really lack in evidentiary value. And unless we do that, this problem is not going to get sorted out. So what we are really seeing today is cut-paste justice.
Now, what is cut paste justice?
Which is you take something from here, take something from there, put it together, and pass an order. I don't think courts have the time or the wherewithal to deal with cases in the way it should be dealt with. Our priorities are all wrong. For example, we are obsessed with corruption, obsessed to the point of it being a little unimaginative and crazy. In Delhi, for example, we have at least 20 courts which deal exclusively with Prevention of Corruption Act matters. Do we need so many courts? Because most of them are sitting idle. Whereas courts...
While the corruption keeps increasing.
That's a social
That's
issue.
another, yeah.
But cases relating to the human body, murder cases, rape cases, dacoity and other cases, kidnapping, these cases which are also tried by sessions courts, they are not given priority, and the priority is for corruption cases. What we do therefore is we take out judges from the general pool and put them as special court judges looking after cases of under the Prevention of Corruption Act. But the burden on the general pool, which has to take care of these very serious cases, increases even more. So while you have courts which have hundreds of cases on their roster, cases relating to murder, kidnapping,
so,
etc.
Is it time to prioritize the cases
Exactly.
as per the lawyers and
Exactly.
judges?
So, and also we should look. I mean, do we need 20 judges to look in one city like the city of Delhi to deal with Prevention of Corruption Act cases? Wouldn't those 20 judges? Shouldn't we reduce the number of judges dealing with Prevention of Corruption Act cases and distribute some of them to deal with the other cases? Would that not be important? Surely, offences against the human body is far more important than cases under the Prevention of Corruption. So we are also victims of warped priorities, and we continue to make the same mistakes. For example, now we have within the Prevention of Corruption Act pool, we have special courts dealing with cases against politicians. Where will this end? We keep creating, every court is a fast track court, so which is a slow court. If every court becomes a fast track court, how is it possible that we have this kind of long list
Plus,
of
how do
pendency?
you decide which case has to be dealt on the fast track basis?
And why should one litigant be discriminated against? So I think this whole idea of fast tracking courts cases is another gimmick. It's a gimmick which pleases people because they think something is happening, but it's just a gimmick. So somewhere we need to sit together and we need to prioritize and we need to re-examine what we have been doing routinely, mindlessly over the years.
Ma'am, you have lived through many difficult cases, be it Arushi Talwar murder case, Hashimpura massacre, or there are so many other cases. I just want to know which has been the most tough, difficult case for you personally and professionally to deal with it.
It's a difficult question to answer because many cases are difficult, and in fact some of the lesser known cases which nobody knows of have
been even more difficult.
Have probably been even more difficult because they throw up challenging questions of fact and law. The Arushi case stood out as probably one of the more difficult cases because of the extreme media attention on that case. So it became very difficult for many of us on the legal team to deal with it dispassionately and to provide the sort of assistance that the couple required. It resulted in serious miscarriage of justice. They went into custody for a fairly long period of time. So I think the Arushi case stands out as one of the more difficult cases because of the extreme media attention. But there have been many cases which have the Hashimpura case that you mentioned was difficult because you were dealing with a case where about 45 men had been shot
case of custodial death.
Had been shot dead by men in uniform, and yet one saw absolutely no interest on the part of the state to prosecute and assist in the conviction of those men. So while I was appearing for the complainants in that case, it was a very, very painful journey because of the facts of the case. It was extremely heartbreaking. So there have been, there have been many cases which have been challenging.
This has been at the most attention. Yeah.
That's
Ma'am, how important do you think it is for youths specifically and the general public who is not so educated, the general public, the common citizen of this country, to be very much aware about the rights, duties and the Constitution of India? The general public and not the educated class who has so much of keen interest in the law.
Right. So I think it's very important for every citizen to know that he or she has rights that are protected by the Indian Constitution, which is one of the most beautiful documents that has ever been written. It protects the fundamental rights of citizens. It expects the state to follow the law. It expects procedure established by law to be upheld. So I think every citizen should have basic knowledge of these rights, should also have knowledge of their duties. They may not be legally nuanced, but the fact that they should at least know that they are protected against, for example, simple things like can the police call a woman, summon a woman to the police station? The law prohibits the police.
If there is no woman constable?
No. Then the police cannot summon a woman to the police station. The law prohibits it. The police must go to her place of residence with a woman constable to interview her, to interrogate her, to record her statement. This also applies to minors who cannot be called to police stations, and also to senior citizens. These are basic rights that are available to citizens, which they must know about, which is routinely flouted because the police is happy if you don't know the law, because then there's no obligation on them to follow the law. So I think there is need to spread this kind of awareness where individual, at least a basic charter of rights, all individuals, whether educated or not educated, they should know that this is available to them.
Ma'am, ever since 2012, the infamous Nirbhaya case, do you think something has changed in this country in terms of dealing with the rape cases? And adding to that question, ma'am, the recent law which has been approved by the cabinet, POCSO, Prevention of Children from Sexual Offence, it is talking about death penalty. For example, if someone rapes a minor, the person can be awarded death penalty, and in addition the maximum punishment of imprisonment of 20 years. So what's your opinion on that?
So these are 2 or 3 different questions.
Yeah.
I don't think the Nirbhaya case was the first case of rape in this country.
It was highlighted.
It was a brutal case, but there have been equally brutal rapes before this case happened in December of 2012.
Yeah.
What the Nirbhaya case did was that it brought civil society together in a manner and in a way that we had never seen before. The outrage was spontaneous, and it helped in getting the Verma Commission constituted, which gave a report which took into account the views of feminists across the countries and other stakeholders. And then finally, Parliament introduced the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 2013, which changed and tightened the law on rape and sexual assault. So in that respect, it was a watershed moment for
So has something changed on the ground zero in terms of rape cases?
That's a difficult question to answer. Obviously, we are not in a space where we don't see cases of sexual assault. Cases of sexual assault happen every minute as we speak. They continue to happen. Clearly, we've seen more reporting of cases. So I can take
Well,
from
that is a good sign.
which is a good sign. But I don't think policing has changed in any way. I don't think investigative skills have improved in any way. And unless all of this comes together, we really can't get a society. We really can't get a regime where women can feel safe.
Do you think it has started at least improving? I mean,
sure.
the situation.
Of course,
because people
of
are
course.
now talking about these cases more than earlier.
More than earlier, of course it is. It is, and of course there's greater awareness, and of course even with respect to police investigations, there have been some changes, but not enough. And I think that a lot more needs to be done. Certainly, we are not. We are not. We don't make our women feel safe in our country. Certainly, there is a lot of violence against women, and despite such strong laws, that hasn't changed.
Ma'am, do you think the new law, which has been amended in the POCSO of death penalty, will act as a deterrent in the crime related to?
I don't think death penalty is a deterrent to any crime, and I think the sooner we understand that, the better it is for all of us. Those who want to commit crimes will commit crimes regardless. These are internationally verifiable, facts.
No, but will it not instill more fear in the culprit's mind?
Are you seeing any fear in any culprit? I don't think we see any fear. On the contrary, it was our case before the Verma Commission that if you were to bring in the death penalty, you might be compelling the perpetrator to murder along with to murder the victim, because they don't want the victim to identify the perpetrator. There are many reasons why the death penalty should not be on the statute books. Unfortunately, we don't seem to understand that the death penalty never acts as a deterrent. It is the certainty of punishment which acts as a deterrent. It is effective policing which acts as a deterrent. It is robust prosecution which acts as a deterrent. These checks and balances at every stage will act as a deterrent. It is reasonably quick justice which will act as a deterrent. If you have a law but you have a case which is pending for 15 or 20 years, it is no deterrent. So really, these are complex issues, and again, the government, by simply saying death, these are easy solutions. It sounds good on paper, but in reality,
no positive outcome.
In reality, it makes no difference to the number of to the status of the crime. So I really don't think it will act as a deterrent, and by introducing that in POCSO, it hasn't changed the scenario on the ground.
Ma'am, what is your idea of feminism? How do you see this concept of feminism as a woman, as a lawyer, as someone, as a senior lawyer, in fact, who look up to you? People look up to you. So how would you say, what is feminism for you?
Feminism for me is the fact that as a woman, I expect to be treated as an equal. I expect the same rights and the same kind of freedoms that are given to men.
So it's about equality.
It is about equality. It is about my voice being heard. It is about equal status in every area of human life. It is about respect. So really, at the bottom of this debate is the fact that women expect to be treated equally as men.
Ma'am, do you think
expect the same opportunities as men? We don't want to be discriminated in the workplace because we are women. We don't want to be treated differently because we are women. We don't want to be mollycoddled in any way. We don't want to be elevated to the status of goddesses in any way. We're human beings. We want to remain as human beings, as equal partners in the growth of the nation, in society, in a home, everywhere. I would expect sons and daughters to be treated in the same manner. This is really what feminism is all about. It is about it's a call for equality.
Ma'am, have you ever been treated discriminately just because you are a woman and not because of the quality of lawyer and advocate you are? I mean, has it ever happened?
I will not say that. I will definitely say that discrimination exists in the legal field. Even after achieving what I have achieved,
Yeah.
I have been discriminated against. I definitely feel that male lawyers have an easier run than female lawyers. I definitely feel that mediocrity in male lawyers is overlooked, and female lawyers are expected to be better than the best. To be
Still, they are looked up with the
to
same
be counted
different eye.
to be counted as someone to be reckoned with. Discrimination exists, and I will definitely say that discrimination, I've also been a victim of that
Ma'am,
discrimination.
do you think things have changed now? Women are more empowered in today's age and time than they have been in
I
earlier
really
days?
think women themselves will take matters into their hands. I think the young women of today in India are not have a clear vision. They are not in any way they're not shy of demanding their rights. So we've come a long way.
So things have started changing.
Things have
positively,
started changing,
but it will
Also
take time.
It will also, the number of women that I see in the legal practice, it's increased. At the time when I joined the practice in '88, I was the only woman on the criminal side, and I see so many young women today. So that's such a wonderful
changed.
sight to see. So we need different colors, different sexes, different people from different parts of the country, and it's that bouquet of diversity which will help men and women to negotiate through life.
Ma'am, Section 375 of Indian Penal Code defines that an offense of rape is committed by a man, and the woman is always the victim, and it does not happen and does not apply on a man. It applies on a woman. For example, if a man rapes a woman,
It's
it's not a gender neutral. So do you think it should change? There should be some amendment in this?
I mean, I don't think you should necessarily tinker with 375, but you can definitely have. You could definitely have a section which deals with assaults on men.
But ma'am, the Supreme Court of India asked the Parliament to modify this recently.
No, so they said to consider it.
Yeah, consider. Yeah,
It's for
exactly.
Parliament to consider or not to consider. So I have, I would like to protect 375 as it stands today, but I would definitely acknowledge the fact that there must be similar provisions to protect men from.
So it should become gender neutral and not as it is.
So what form it will ultimately take is something that can be worked out. But yes, why shouldn't there be provisions which protect men from sexual assault?
Marital rape is a reality.
It's a
and
complicated question.
Marital rape, it's not a criminal offense in this country. Do you think it should be criminalized?
So again, as a straight answer, of course, why shouldn't it be criminalized? Because what is rape? At the end of the day, the definition of rape is anything which is done without the consent of a woman. So even within a relationship and even within the confines of a marriage, if something is done against the wishes of a woman, it should be.
If there's no consent.
If there's no consent. So I think India is shy of making that of taking that forward and making that leap.
Why so?
Because we are a traditional society, we are a conservative
So will it
society.
really destroy the sanctity of marriage, or as some call institution of marriage? Will it? I mean, some call marriage is an institution.
Well, violence destroys the institution
Exactly.
of marriage, not the offense. When you are violent against women, when you practice domestic violence, when you sexually abuse your wives, that destroys the institution of marriage. So I think somewhere down the line, our understanding of what destroys the institution of marriage must also change. I think we have very narrow and a very conservative outlook when it comes to offences, broadening the scope of these kind of offences, and I definitely hope in the years to come we will be able to bring marital rape within the statute.
Ma'am, Indian Penal Code is designed keeping every crime in this country, in the mind, all the necessary crimes that may occur. Why do you think, despite IPC, so many laws, rules, regulations, the crime rates are increasing in this country? Do you think it is increasing and we should do something seriously about this?
The crime rate is increasing because we are so callous about crimes, because we do not we encourage some crimes. I mean, you can when you look at some of the lynchings that have taken place, there has been absolutely no evidence of state interest in trying to control these crimes. So somewhere there's complicity of the political establishment, of the police, policing in this country. Crimes are increasing because there's a very close nexus between the criminal and the men and women in power. It happens across this country. We protect criminals. Those in power are invested in protecting criminals. And then there is an atmosphere of complete impunity. So when you have that atmosphere around, you just have to look at the amount of road rage on our roads every day. People think they can get away with it.
Ma'am, do you think there should be a separate law against mob lynching in this country?
Not necessarily. I think we should.
There are
too many laws in our country
to deal with it.
Too many laws in our country. I would actually want some of these laws to go. But what I am looking for is, see, we have the law, we have the structure. What we lack is the will to prosecute with a certain robustness. And so long as we lack the will, and so long as we are complicit with the criminal, nothing is going to change. You can keep having more and more laws, nothing is going to change. So the law exists. It is the lack of socio-political will which prevents us from prosecuting these crimes.
Ma'am, do you think those politicians who are just accused or are tainted of some criminal offense or serious crimes but not convicted should be barred from contesting elections? Mind you, they're not convicted. There is just a charge against them.
No, I really, again, this is a complex problem because it's very easy to say that there are so many criminals who are in parliament or in state legislatures. That's perhaps true.
Yeah, it is also true that they cannot be criminals. I mean, someone can do it to defame them.
That's perhaps true, but we must also look at the power of the government in power to frame cases against those in the opposition. So I think, the misuse of state agencies, which we are increasingly seeing now from the Enforcement Directorate to the CBI to other agencies, to frame politicians who are of a different dispensation, is also something we must consider when we talk about politicians who should not be allowed to contest. Certainly, if politicians are convicted of crimes, they should not be allowed to.
But ma'am, okay, agreed with you.
I personally don't think that simply because charges are framed against politicians,
they should be barred. Because they could be innocent
they could be innocent, and it goes against the very jurisprudence that we uphold, that every man or every woman is innocent till proven guilty.
Exactly.
So why should we have a different parameter to judge politicians?
Ma'am, in today's scenario, how do you think it is very important for especially the youths, the common citizens of this country to know about the rights in today's scenario? Is it very important?
Of course, it is very important to know about rights. I think I've answered this question. I believe all citizens should know about their rights.
Ma'am, do you believe in justice delayed is justice denied?
It is definitely.
That's why you were asking for some limitations in terms of time for fixing up the problem.
Justice delayed is definitely justice denied.
Ma'am, with social law youth initiative program, we are trying to educate the Indians and youths and the common citizens of this country about the laws, constitution, rights and duties, what would you like to say about us and our organization?
How do you educate people? I mean, I think
We're just trying to create an awareness about the.
that's a welcome move. I think you should have little capsule programs which will tell citizens what their rights are, and spreading awareness about statutory and constitutional rights and duties is something that if you're doing that, that's a welcome move.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this exclusive episode of the interview. We'll be back very soon with yet another interesting personality on the show.